Hello and welcome once again to Voice of the Coast. Very pleased tonight to have with us Dr. Buffy Fegenbush, Superintendent of Schools for St. Mary Parish Public School System. We appreciate your time here.
Thank you for having me.
We want to talk about LEAP testing.
Okay.
Not quite the full scores have come out yet, but you got most of them. And overall, how did we do?
Well, we've had some wins, and we've been trying to highlight that on our social media so people can see. Saw some growth in Algebra 1 biology. Some of our 5th, 8th grade math, we've seen growth. So at the same time, we need to remember when we're talking about a grade level, they do English, math, science, and social studies. Mm-hmm. Right now, we do not even have scores for 3 through 8 social studies nor high school civics exams. So to say overall proficiency rates and give out specific numbers, we're very hesitant to do that right now because we don't have the full picture.
And we should also point out this is just LEAP scores. This is not the full school performance scores that usually come out in the fall.
That's correct.
And I think these results are a little more individual student oriented than talking about the school in general. This is where the parents can actually go in and take a look and see how their child did. Let's give that information out.
Okay.
How do the parents go find out exactly how their child scored?
Many of our parents have already signed up for our Student Progress Center, which is available. You can sign up through J Campus, which everyone's pretty familiar with. You can see student grades, you can see their daily attendance if you want, discipline, but also their test scores are there, which I think maybe parents don't access that as frequently, maybe not knowing that they're there, but they can do that right now. The first day of school, we will send home paper copies, and also the parent guide of how to use and read the scores will be sent home as well.
Okay. And when you're evaluating the school performance, how fair is it really to look at, say, for instance, 3rd grade? You look at the 3rd grade and you say, this is how we did. But next year, when you look at it and you say we got better or we got worse, but we're talking about a whole new different group of kids, right?
Yes. So sometimes when it looks like maybe 5th grade has dropped in something, I'm using that just as an example.
Right.
But as 4th graders, maybe they were lower. So when they came to 5th grade, they might not have even dropped. They might have actually grown from where they were for 4th grade, but because of the previous year, those 5th graders are now 6th graders, maybe just performed higher. Mm-hmm. So you're right, it's not apples to apples. And each year, we still compare things that necessarily are not the same set of students. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Sonny, put those scores up again, and these are partial. The school performance that we saw. We can see who had some of the top proficiency scores. You said, and these are partial, but in particular at the elementary school level, LaGrange, Maitland, Foster, Oakwan, all did really well.
They did. So just to kind of explain that a little further, when we're talking about proficiency growth, it doesn't necessarily mean they had the highest assessment proficiency score. It means that these schools, compared to their scores last year, showed that amount of growth. So the highest level of growth is what you're seeing in our highlights right now. Okay. But that's amazing because we're talking about, when we look at 12 points, over 12 points for like LaGrange, for instance, mm-hmm. That shows a tremendous amount of focus on individual student needs and where they need to grow. So that's, really, it's a lot to be applauded.
Yeah, Maitland and Foster, both a little bit over 9%, Oakwan 8.5%.
Yes, and Maitland has grown, was almost 14 points, 15 points last year, and then to grow again this year, they're doing something right.
Yeah, very good. I don't want to harp too much on at the other end,
right.
the schools that may not have done as well, and sometimes again that's not always a real fair measure, because you might have a school that did outstanding last year, didn't do quite as outstanding this year.
That's
but
correct.
There's a negative number, so you have to kind of
yes,
watch
and
that.
so I just ask people to really look at them, with a clear eye of what those numbers mean. Also, we found this year our high schools, we saw some drop in English 2, for example, but they were extremely high the year before. So this year when they went up from English 1 they grew actually a little bit, but overall proficiency looks like it's dropped. So we know those things, and so we make sure that we just look at it clearly to identify the needs of our kids to do the right things for them.
Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Voice of the Coast. Welcome once again to Voice of the Coast. We're with the Superintendent of Schools for St. Mary Parish, Dr. Buffy Fegenbush, and we're talking about the LEAP testing. Once again, some of the elementary schools really did well, but these are partial scores yet. Which grades are we still waiting for?
Grades 3 through 8 for social studies, and then the high school had a new exam this year replacing U.S. history, civics. First time it's ever been given, and for example, we had a group of students who took the civics exam in November in the fall. They have not received their scores yet because the State Department has not determined what that score range is going to be. So for those grade levels, we are still waiting, and we will get those results in August.
That's got to be a crazy part of this whole thing is that you're having to hit what you know is going to be a moving target.
Exactly. I've likened it to being in a dark room, you know, and you're like shooting a paintball gun, and you hope that the splatter's in the right place, and when you turn on the lights, that I hit it, you know, because that's kind of where we are right now. But we understand that, and we just take it as it is and move forward.
Yeah, and speaking of which, well, there's the top areas of growth there: algebra, biology. But I want to talk a little bit about the teachers, and you did put out, or the system put out a list of some of the top performing teachers in that area. There's a list, and I think there's a few more that will probably get added once you have the schools done. But once again, kind of a moving target thing, because the teachers might have improved, but they're not necessarily working with the same group of kids they worked with last year.
That's correct, and sometimes you're hesitant to put something out there like that, but also too, because they do work so hard, if we do see these areas that we can highlight, then we just need to do that. And 50% proficiency means that over half of your class earn mastery or advance on those skills. So that's pretty amazing. And we do need to highlight those kinds of things. We still need to also put out our high school highlights. Those are a little more tricky to do because they have so many classes in high school. They have different, maybe they might teach 3 algebras in the fall and 3 algebras in the spring. You just don't know. So we've got to put that all together. So that will be coming.
And knowing that only particular grade levels are measured in the LEAP scores, how do you take that score and then say, carry it over to the next level? You get, do you want to just look at, for instance, a 3rd grade level and say, what do we need to work on for the 3rd graders, or take it and put it directly on those 3rd graders who have the scores you're looking at and know what you have to work with in the 4th grade?
Kind of both.
If that makes sense.
It does, it does. So in 3rd grade, there's always standards. So we really look at the standards that the students are supposed to meet. So we can pull the testing data and say there was a certain standard that our 3rd graders just not seem to be successful in. So we know in interventions the next year, that's an area where we want to be. We also know individualized interventions are helpful too. So that decides many of the reasons why students are either placed in a certain group setting or an individual setting for interventions from those scores.
Considering that this is everything is based on a standardized test, how much leeway do the individual schools have to work with their own programs to try to say, we didn't do as well as the school on the other side of the parish, so we have to work a little harder on this particular thing? But you're still trying to keep a common curriculum, or a curriculum that's common to the whole system.
Well, that's not even about individual schools, that's across the state.
Right.
There's certain curriculum, like Tier 1 curriculum that we have to use. They call it high quality instructional materials. And so we don't have a lot of options. I think people think that we do, but for funding purposes, et cetera, we have to spend our money in certain areas. So the programs that we use in our schools are really based upon state guidance. And then from there, we go down. Now, we do have like some secondary programs that we put in for interventions and other things that we can choose, but even not always with that. The State Department this year we're going to be testing our little ones, 2 numeracy screeners, a literacy screener, the first month of school. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So we got to fix that a little bit, because our students should not be testing that much, especially with the little ones when they first start school.
Yeah, I get it. And that's a good place to wrap this up here. We appreciate your time coming
Thank
in.
you.
We're going to have you back in right around the beginning of the school year to talk about how this formula for measuring the students is going to change
Drastically.
So
Yes.
we will see what happens. Looking forward to having you back again.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time on Voice of the Coast.